blockchains built to scale. We are so lucky to have Mo from Aptos and Sandeep from Polygon here to join us. The goal of today is for everybody here to understand what a layer 1 is, what a layer 2 is, and why we need them. And I'd love to just give a quick background on your experience in this space. Mo, if you could kind of just give us a little bit of your background and kind of how you started in this space. I think you said 2015.
Yep.
Would love to hear a little bit more.
Sure. I got it started in the space in an unconventional way. Typically, folks have kind of read the Satoshi white paper and bought some Bitcoin. Like many people in this audience, I come from more of a financial world where I was at BlackRock and at BCG. And when I was at one of my consulting cases, I was asked, "Hey, can you help enterprise grade blockchains come to market?" And at the time, it was folks like IBM's Hyperledger Fabric or R3's Corda that were around, and yeah, that definitely piqued my interest. Of course, started looking at other projects that were out there that were trying to gain notoriety for different use cases, and ultimately realized this was a space that I thought was worth pursuing and innovating. I wrote a paper on the topic, and it started to make its way, make the rounds. And a guy named Joe Lubin and Consensus reached out, and there was a small group of people working in a warehouse in Brooklyn, and I thought that was at least a cool experience that I would end up in, and ended up joining Consensus. Ended up founding my second startup, focused on building tokenization of real-world assets on top of the Ethereum blockchain. That project now lives on as Consensus's DeFi offering, which is really cool. And eventually realized, well, this technology has a lot of potential, but not that many people are really using it. There was a project called Facebook that said, well, in order to scale the user experience, we think we need to build our own blockchain. And I thought that was a very, confident and some would say arrogant view. But when I dug into the white paper that Libra had published, or Facebook had published, I ended up joining Facebook to work on the DM project and Novi, which was the wallet. So I spent a lot of time at Facebook thinking about how do you build architecture that can scale for billions of users, 3 billion users, because some of the blockchains out there don't do that today, and still then and still today. And from there, of course, things evolved very quickly. Unfortunately, we ran into a lot of issues at Facebook, which evolved to Meta. But my co-founder Avery, who was at Facebook for 10 years, and we were still very interested in the potential of Web3. And we were very fortunate to continue to pursue and build on top of that 4 years of experience at Meta building that blockchain, and that evolved into what is now known as Aptos. We've raised $200 million from A16Z, Nural, many other funds like Multicoin, FTX. And we also just announced our Series A round, where we raised an additional $150 million. And we've been focused on building. So fast forward, my mission and Aptos' mission is still what it once was, 3.5 to 4 years ago, where there isn't an L1 that scales for 1 billion people's user experience, and that's kind of been my journey into the space and the problem that we're looking to solve as an L1.
Great, and what an impressive background in the space, Sandeep.
Yeah, so
you are the layer 2 expert here, and you've been in this space for a number of years as well. Tell us about your journey and what Polygon is building today, and the exciting partnership that you guys have with Starbucks.
Absolutely. So my background is, I'm much junior to Mo in the crypto space. Basically, he came in like 2014, 15.
Don't make fun of my gray hair on stage, man. That's not.
And much less stellar background also than Mo. I was in India doing a B2B startup back in 2015, and it was not scaling to my, the way I wanted to scale it. And then I started getting involved into got interested in deep tech space. So I initially, traversed a bit in the AI space. I realized there's too much of mathematics for me and I wanted to go back to programming myself. So then I stumbled onto blockchains and I read the Bitcoin white paper, and after that the Andreas Antonopoulos' amazing book like Mastering Bitcoin. And then the good part, that computer science guy in me did not see the marketing side of things or the kind of the money and all these things side of things, but I thought of it as a decentralized network which was processing this small logic, which is the payment logic. And I thought that, what if we could do complex business logic on something like this, which will, it will be very empowering, because right now there is at that point in time also the institutional trust globally was at all-time low, and we would all be benefited, and it will be a big, kind of evolution for humanity, that if we are able to do this decentralized computation. So that's when, and then 2-3 weeks later on, I stumbled onto Ethereum, and I realized that, okay, this is the thing, and I jumped head on into that, shut down whatever I was doing, went completely into programming and all that, and then I was building some D-apps ourselves, and I think that experience with my other co-founder also, where we were building initially D-apps, we were not protocol developers originally, that kind of has helped us Polygon to become what Polygon is today, is because we were ourselves the users of blockchain, and then we could clearly feel the issues the developers were also having. So this is 2017 end when we started Polygon, and we had much, again, humble beginnings, forget about this hundreds of millions of dollars, we could raise hardly 600K. Nobody could believe that, this team from the, emerging world will actually be able to build protocol like that too in a blockchain space. And for years, today I am on the stage, but 1.5 years ago, I was probably carrying standees in these events and trying to put Polygon somewhere. So, but then I think that dApp building background, and the mission that we had, is very clear that we wanted to build a blockchain which gets adopted. We don't want to build these, fancy air castles which nobody uses, which have theoretically really good blockchain things. So that's when that mission has been relentless in our minds, and that's where we are today. Polygon is arguably the most adopted blockchain in the world today. Mm-hmm. And the Facebooks, Instagram, everybody, Stripe, Starbucks you mentioned, everybody is looking to use Polygon. And we are Ethereum layer 2 protocol. We believe that Ethereum is that settlement layer, and the internet level scale on Web3 will come when you have these. This is a settlement layer. Ethereum is a settlement layer, and on top of that, you will have huge number of different public as well as app chains where apps can execute millions of transactions in a dedicated way, not getting affected with this shared blockchain phenomena which we are today. And that's how we think that Web3 will achieve the internet level scale, and that's what we are striving for.
Well, since you both brought up Ethereum, we have to talk about the ETH Verge a little bit. It's highly anticipated, and I think we're 1 day and 9 hours away. That's what the Google countdown said. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how successful do you think, each of you think it's going to be? And then we can dig into what that means for your respective projects as well.
Sure, yeah, I can go first. I think, being part of the Ethereum ecosystem very early on, I'm personally obviously excited, invested, and looking forward to proof of stake, right? I think the Ethereum community has been looking for it for quite some time, and I think the industry as a whole, from a Web3 perspective, is demanding this. I don't know how it's going to go. I don't have a crystal ball, but I do think ultimately, upgrades take time. This is just phase 1 of many phases ahead for Ethereum's journey that I think the Ethereum community is excited about. From a layer 1's perspective, we realized proof of work only can get you so far. I think the Ethereum community understood that based on, again, just demand and a bunch of folks that were building in the space. I think the challenge was actually bringing that upgrade to life. It's taken quite some time for the upgrade to actually take place, and I'm very hopeful that a day and 9 hours is all it takes at this point. But it should not have taken this long to begin with, which is the problem. And when we were building Aptos 4 years ago, we realized you have to start with a proof of stake network because there's just so much more efficiency that comes with a proof of stake network. However, often when you think about a proof of stake network, you could be making other compromises, both from a security perspective or a centralization perspective. And these are things that I don't think are necessarily going to be solved when the merge takes place. I think the verdict is going to be out. This is not the first time the Ethereum community has debated a topic where Ethereum Classic came up. So I'm interested to see what the narrative looks like in the coming hours, and then definitely the months and years for the Ethereum community. But from Aptos' perspective, we're obviously excited to be our own proof of stake network from the inception, one that's designed for evolutionary components built right in from day one. So yeah, that's my quick take. I'm curious to hear what Sandeep thinks because it's very relevant.
Yeah. I mean, as a layer 2 for us, it's very relevant. Like we even call Ethereum the mother chain. So when Ethereum is becoming greener, definitely like in the Starbucks thing, like for example, did take into that account because eventually they have a very large community to cater to, which actually expects them to be environmentally responsible. So I think that's in my mind, that's one of the biggest kind of software upgrades or this coordinated kind of effort that is happening globally in the history of mankind. I can't imagine something that at this magnitude that is happening, which is happening with the Ethereum merge, and it has been tested multiple times. Of course, like every time it was tested, there were some issues found and they were resolved and all that, and people feel confident that this will go very comfortably. We also believe so, but again, excited as well as finger crossed with that nothing bad happens, and hopefully the Ethereum chain doesn't have to hard fork or doesn't have to doesn't get stalled or anything. So we are more interested in that, and hopefully that goes safely. And then obviously the benefits that are going to come across because of this environmentally stable Ethereum based chain is going to be absolutely massive, not only for Ethereum but I think overall industry, because we can now very clearly differentiate that only Bitcoin, which is like one obviously is the biggest chain, but it is only POW, everything else is POS, so it's environmentally conducive. So it's a great step in that sense. And hopefully, like the other part is like one of the biggest strengths of Ethereum, I feel. I mean, definitely the Aptos and many other layer ones of the product of the world, like they are starting after 5 years of all this advancements that has happened. So definitely they have an advantage to not do the mistakes that Ethereum might have done at that time when it was starting. So. But I feel that the way Ethereum community has evolved, like as a layer 1. Largely decentralized, I would say even more decentralized than any other blockchain, and the community that is working on it, like people like us who are working for Ethereum's future instead of some core company working for it. I think that's in itself is a very big feat. And with Ethereum community also, when it started in 2015, 16, early versions came in, and then the community becomes too decentralized. And then it started coming back. Like that's the most positive sign for me, is that in the last 2.5 years, Ethereum community has delivered all these upgrades, EIP 1559, now this merge. So that is very exciting for me, that how these communities have evolved. Good learning lesson also, that they were initially centralized, then became too decentralized, but then became still remaining decentralized, became an effective unit, which have delivered 2-3 updates in the last 2-3 years. So that makes me very, kind of bullish on the way communities can evolve and work and coordinate on delivering large kind of upgrades, which every blockchain has to go through. Even Polygon has to go through eventually. Aptos would go through eventually. So that's a great sign.
Well, that's a great segue then to, the highly anticipated mainnet launch that Aptos has hopefully this year. This is, I guess, after the ETH merge, I think one of the most interesting things that we have coming up this quarter. Like you mentioned, $350 million already raised with investors backing you, like FTX, Multicoin Capital, and Nural Capital, my fund. Can you tell us about how you see that how you see that going in this market and launching in a winter?
Yeah, I mean, we didn't plan for the winter. Plan for it to be winter, I should say. I don't think anyone has a crystal ball, unfortunately. So we just took a very different approach, right? Like, you're not going to be able to time markets. We all know what happens when you try to do that. I think our perspective was instead to focus on the community, and I think there's two cornerstone pockets when we think about community. One was the Web3 community. The second was the Web2 community. And our view was, how do we figure out a world where they can work together instead of having these kind of divided perspectives that we've seen so far. The compatibility has not been here. Nothing against all the suits here, but there's lots of folks that wear t-shirts and sandals at the other conferences that I go to. But we wanted to bring those folks together. So we had our first hackathon in May of this year, and people that were wearing suits and people that were wearing flip-flops all came together from big tech companies, large financial firms, developers from down the block in Stanford and Berkeley. And what we thought was really cool is all these groups worked very closely together. We had a team that formed with, a lawyer from New York, a American Army veteran who taught himself how to code, and a wonderful woman from Stanford who's getting her computer science degree. And within hours, they built an application in 36 hours. We gave them some pizza, and they were kind of on their way, right? And it's been amazing to see that community really flourish. In fact, we now are incubating a lot of those projects as part of our accelerator program. There's around 150 projects that are building on top of our network already. We don't even have a network out live. So, for us, it's been amazing. And some of those projects are already getting funding from different folks. I know Nural has been speaking with a couple of them. So, it's really been focusing on the next generation of founders and builders. That's, we don't think about market timing from that perspective. Web2 folks, it's certainly interesting timing for them. I'm sure Sandeep's had amazing experience with working with some of those partners. We've had folks reach out to us that they're concerned, right? They're looking at their businesses today and thinking, well, what do we do with what's happening very quickly around us? We don't understand this technology, just like at one point they didn't understand what the internet meant for their business models. And some of them are being disrupted. Billions of dollars are flowing out of their platforms that they've built, these walled gardens. And they're asking themselves, well, how do we rush to innovate now? And by the time you're asking that question, it might already be too late. So it's interesting to see a lot of these Web2 folks thinking about, regardless of the bear cycle that we're in right now, they're heads down trying to figure out how they incorporate Web3 very quickly. Starbucks probably one of them. We're working closely with folks like Google and obviously FTX and a bunch of other partners that are thinking about not only just joining Web3 for the hype and issuing some random NFTs that don't necessarily make sense, but they're thinking about entire business models that are going to come to market as a means of Web3, right? Completely open and permissionless systems. How do you take, an in-game asset that you spent, many hours playing Fortnite, and then bring that over to a social media platform? How do you then take that to a video streaming platform and have token-gated access, right? These are going to be, breakthrough changes that, the Web2 platforms are not ready for, and some of them are already scrambling to try to make changes. So, I think the bear cycle has definitely honed in our focus and the market's focus on building.
And Sandeep, talk to us a little bit about how you have been dynamic at Polygon. Even today, the NASDAQ's down 5%, Bitcoin's down nearly 8%. How do you keep going with all of these shocks to the ecosystem and the market generally? How has Polygon adapted? How are you guys kind of motivating teams going forward. And I think one thing I'd love for you to touch on is, in the midst of the Terra collapse, how have you kind of taken those devs and integrated them into your ecosystem too? Because I think you've done a lot of work with that on your ecosystem fund. So
yeah. So I mean, as I said, that the core focus for us has been mass adoption, and as cliched as it sounds, but that gives us this clarity of mind that we are not playing a 1 year, 2 year, 3 year game, right? We are playing a 5 to 10 year game. So all this noise is kind of temporary. Even this bear market, like in 6 to 12 months, it will not be there, right? And the best companies are built in the bear markets, right? So I mean, we were also, Polygon, was born in the bear market actually. So I think, and it kind of narrows down your focus on doing the right things, the pragmatic things. So we've been doing that, and I mentioned that we could initially raise only 600K, but eventually 3 months back we raised $500 million also. So from all the marquee funds across the world, Sequoias, Tiger Globals, and SoftBanks of the world, and we are very well capitalized for next 4 to 5 years, because again, as I said, that mission brings clarity to our purpose, and we clearly knew that we need the ZK technology that we are building. We need 3 to 4 years, 5 years of hard work to reach that place, and that's why, like, we before markets became this thing, I think something guided us to do that fundraise, and we have a good enough runway of 4 to 5 years now. And actually in these markets we are the ones who are hiring. Like we have hired most aggressively in the past 4-5 months. We are now 400 or 500 people plus team, as well as in the ecosystems also, as you were saying, that Terra Luna, for example, I think 90% of that ecosystem moved on to Polygon. I think 50 to 55 applications moved on to Polygon, and Polygon has, like, today around 40,000 applications overall. And the goal is to take it to probably millions of applications, because as they say in the Web 2 world, like only 1 out of 10,000 applications built actually becomes popular, right? So in Web 3, we need millions of applications for few hundreds of them to become, like, really popular and onboard millions of users, in fact billions of users. So it's a long-term game, and we are heads down building, as well as when I say building, it means community, it means product, and it means helping builders to whatever they need to experiment and keep building new applications.
That's great. And one of the things that we get asked a lot at Nural Capital is, what's regulation look like? And when is regulation going to come to this space? Mo, you were at Facebook, I mean, forefront of a lot of this regulatory clarity, or lack of clarity sometimes. So would love to get your perspective on what you think regulation looks like going forward, as you're building as well, how you're integrating that in your build.
It's a great question. I mean, I think we're seeing so many different regulators across the world trying to figure out how they can let this technology succeed. Innovation is in their best interest, in the best interest of their citizens. But unfortunately, I don't think it's kept up with the pace of innovation. It's often very difficult for regulators, right? That's just public servants. With that being said, I think it has to be very thoughtful, right? It should not stifle or pause or create disruption in the space to suck the energy out in a way that you cannot bring new platforms to the world. I mean, for the same reason someone would criticize a large social media platform or a large phone company, I think you have to think about, well, if you don't allow for new innovation to come, there will not be competitors in the space. You will not be able to challenge the incumbents. So I think regulators play a role. They're trying to figure things out. We just hope that they'll be very thoughtful, right? I think what's going to be more interesting is what happens when regulation takes place, regardless of what that regulation may be. I think a lot of folks are going to scramble, whether they're wallets, exchanges, applications, even L1s themselves may face some challenges. From Aptos' perspective, I kind of took it back to my New York City days and thought about the painful New York City subway ride that some of you may have experienced. I've been riding that thing for 32 years, and it's, it gets the job done, I guess, right? But the problem was, many years ago, a lot of folks don't realize there were 3 different subway systems that had to get connected. And as part of that connection, a lot of the things did not work well. The infrastructure still today doesn't transfer over. There are different trains built for different lines. That's very, very costly. And if you try to upgrade a train line or the train itself, you can forget about it, right? We thought about Aptos very similarly. We want to make sure we're building infrastructure that doesn't run into the same issues that the New York City subway ran into. So, when regulation comes into place, as evolution continues to take place and the space evolves, enterprise use cases evolve, Web3 use cases evolve, we want to make sure that we have infrastructure that supports that use case. So, we're excited. We hope regulation is, thoughtful, but we're prepared to remain agile once it does get implemented.
Yeah, and Sandeep, I want to ask you, recently you've moved from India to Dubai, and it seems like there's a lot of builders coming to the UAE. I think one of the common things we all share on this panel is that we've spent time in the Middle East. I used to work at Mubadala. I know, Mo, you were in Dubai for a while, and Sandeep, now you're there. Are you seeing this regional trend where there's more development in the Middle East and more blockchain focus, and how are the regulators responding there?
I think regulators there are slightly more friendly. They look more friendly right now, although there is no formal regulation anywhere. Like even in UAE, it's not there. But then they look friendly, and that's why a lot of people are migrating from like India and other geographies to Dubai, which has done a great job in terms of like marketing how it wants to kind of bring in regulations to make it easier. But I think as a platform, just to add the previous question also, as a platform, I think that's why I like this layer 1, layer 2 kind of combination also, because in Web3, when we are looking for mass adoption, we have to balance between these 2 things. We have to uphold the core values of Web3, complete permissionlessness, full freedom of speech, code, whatever it is. And on the other side, we want to go mainstream, and we want to take Web3 mainstream and bring these Starbucks and Instagrams and Facebooks of the world on blockchain. How do you balance these 2 things? Because this side needs to be comfortable with regulation, and I think that's where this this layer 1 where Ethereum core is fully dedicated and dedicated towards the upholding the values of Web3, complete freedom, this, that, nothing, no regulations on that, the core principles of Web3, whereas the layer 2 can actually have all these things which can be conducive to the regulation. So that part works well. And in terms of the regional thing, as you were saying, that this will happen. A lot of regulators need to realize that if they don't act fast enough, they are going to lose a lot of talent. And like in India, in a way, we are seeing this brain drain round 2, right? Which is previously there was the H1B visa to US. Now it is whoever wants to build in Web3 is looking to go out. But I think Indian government understands that they move, it's a big country, so they move slow. But hopefully they will move in a way where they'll provide avenues within India, and similar things will happen with various countries where they will provide some avenues or sandboxes in some parts of their countries where you can go and kind of work with the Web3 related things.
Great. And with our last couple minutes here, could you tell us how today the audience or people listening in can get involved in the blockchain or get involved in your ecosystems? Mm-hmm. Maybe it's by their Starbucks coffee in the morning, in your case, but would love to hear from you how to get more involved.
Yeah. So I always feel that, people who want to get into crypto, they always ask me that, where should they start? How can they learn more about crypto? I say that you don't learn crypto, you have to live crypto, right? So it's a lifestyle. Crypto is a lifestyle. We guys can never go back to the traditional work now. So in order for you to live crypto, you have to become the part of the community. So I would say, as actionables, instead of giving you abstract things, as an actionable, pick up 2-3 big DeFi communities, let's say Uniswap, Aave, and put some skin in the game, like interact with those platforms, do some, swaps, or, take a loan, or, borrow, and things like that. And also, once you get involved in those applications, then see how the governance process is taking place over there. Like, for example, Aave and Compound and all that, they recently had this whole, Ethereum, borrow rates going high, so they were trying to increase the APY, see how the governance happens over there. Similarly, be a part of few NFT communities, maybe Bored Apes, or, some upcoming ones. There are always NFT drops coming in. So that's where that way you get the most experiential learning, and that's the only way. There's no easy way, or reading some text somewhere and all that. And also, like, become more active on Twitter, and, follow people whom, let's say, people like us are following. So you'll get a nice feed, where you can collect the dots, like, and collect the dots freely. And don't worry about them connecting today, but in 6 months, once you keep collecting these dots, some of them will start connecting. And then, hopefully in some time you'll become crypto native, as we say.
Yeah. And Mo, how can we get involved with Aptos?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I love just living crypto, not trying to. That's a great analogy. Yeah, I mean, for Aptos, right? We're Mainnet's upon us. It's gonna be a pretty exciting moment for us. Easy ways to get involved right now is jump into our Discord channel. I think we have over 100,000 Discord members in there. But as soon as you dive in, there's easy tutorials that just explain what Aptos is in simple terms. We actually had an NFT drop over the weekend where the last. I think within 24 hours, 100,000 people came into the community and minted their own NFT. Live it, right? Try to mint your NFT and see what that experience is like and how easy it actually is on Aptos. I think Twitter is obviously a great place to start as well. Over time, obviously, folks like FTX and other platforms are going to, feature Aptos, and I think those will be great venues to go to as well to learn more.
Thank you both so much for your time. What an awesome conversation.